Hello, it's Shelley F Knight, bringing you Positive Changes, a self-kick podcast. So today on the show, we are joined by Vanessa Wallace, and she's a wife, mother of 3 children, and even got 2 grandchildren. And she's the founder and owner of Crystal Clear Coaching. So hello to Vanessa.
Hi, Shelley. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you're most welcome. So we've connected through Zinat Nurani, and she was my guest on episode 5, and she went from skater to positive creator. So here we are. But I don't know much about you, but I know you do wonderful work now, but please do tell us your backstory and your positive change.
Okay, gosh, it's quite a story really, and had a little bit of a shock factor. Sometimes people look at me, especially sort of in networking groups, sort of look at me and go, "Oh, really?" Because I don't look the part as to what I used to be. I got myself. I was a normal kid. When I went to boarding school, and I went to university after that. But during that period, I started smoking a bit of pot and drinking a bit of alcohol, maybe something that a lot of kids do at that age. And eventually that progressed for me, and it got quite bad. And I ended up as a heroin addict. By the time I was in my early 20s, I was quite a heavy heroin addict and quite dependent on heroin. And it went on for many, many years. And I tried all different ways and means to stop using. And really all of that was just rooted in quite a low self-esteem. And it was a way of me just hiding from the world, from who I was, from people. Because if I was just out of my head all the time, I didn't have to engage with life. But obviously what happened is the more that I did that, the worse I felt about myself. And there was always this underlying knowledge for me that I could do something better, or there was another path for me, but I just couldn't quite reach it for so many years. And it was just such a struggle. I think a lot of the problem for me was I never told anybody. So I kept all of this a secret to myself. And, I just tried to cope and tried to get through. My husband at the time, he was also a heroin addict. So we were together doing this together, and we hid from the world. And, it took a point where it just got really, really bad for me, for me to actually ask for some help. And it was actually on the back of quite a bad car accident that I had. And funnily enough, the night before I had this car accident, I had almost, sometimes when you can have those, it was almost like a prayer or a wish, and it was, I can't do this anymore, and just feeling really, really hopeless. And I've been feeling quite hopeless, but this night was particularly prominent. And then the next day I went out in the car. I was working as a chambermaid in a hotel, and a drink driver came straight across onto my side of the road and went straight head on into me, and I was admitted to hospital with some quite serious injuries. And because I was addicted, obviously they gave me the pain relief in the hospital, but it wasn't enough. So I had to say to somebody, I've actually got a heroin addiction. Because morphine is the same as heroin, which is what they were giving me. And so they then connected me with some services, and it took quite a while from that point for me to actually come off it. But I went onto a methadone program, and I started to see an acupuncturist, funnily enough, and she was really, really great. And she helped me just to feel less stressed, because I was so stressed all the time. And this is why I believe in a lot of this stuff as well, because that was the first step for me, was seeing her. And then 2 years after that, after quite a few other changes that I needed to make in my life, I had to split with my partner at the time. And I came to London, and I went into a treatment centre, which I actually spent a year in treatment for addictions. So I was very lucky that I was able to do that, because I don't think for a lot of people that's available these days. I mean, we're talking 20 years ago now. but you know, I know there are places where you can spend like a year to 18 months in treatment, but I needed that time to rediscover myself, to learn about myself again, and to understand who I was, to claim back my own identity, because I had no idea who I was, what I wanted from life. You know, it had all just been shut down with this numbness, which I'd had, you know, for like probably 10 years in total. So that was quite a journey. And I came out of there, and I worked, I did a bit of volunteering for a while, but all the time I was just getting better and better. And eventually I went back to university in 2005 and studied to be a cognitive behaviour therapist. And the reason I chose that was because I just knew that it was about my thinking that was causing me a lot of problems. So, you know, how I thought about myself, how I thought about situations, how so controlling I was, how it was so difficult for me to accept things as they were, my life as it was, other people as they were. And so I learnt this particular type of cognitive behaviour therapy called rational emotive behaviour therapy. And if you've ever heard of the Serenity Prayer, it's based in that, which is accept the things you cannot change. Change the things you can, but have the wisdom to know the difference. And that's what I had to learn, you know, to accept my life as it was, to have some compassion with myself for that and why I'd ended up being like that, to accept myself, you know, as I was, and to also accept that I couldn't be this perfect person that I always felt I had to be. And I don't quite know why I felt like that in my life, but you know, I think there was various kind of things, because academically I was quite bright, and you know, I think I had this idea that I'd, you know, end up somewhere completely different to where I did, and my whole world kind of fell apart. You know, in my late teens, I started doing not so well at school, and I think that really knocked me. And I see that a lot with young people, you know, where they maybe are doing well at school and then something happens and they fall back, and how much that knocks their self-esteem. So
and
yeah, you know, go on.
So did you have an event like that? Was there an event that triggered it, or was it because your husband was an addict? Was there an actual one day that happened that triggered to start the addiction?
No, I would say it really just started with having a bit of fun at boarding school.
Okay.
And you know, just smoking dope down in the gardens, having a drink at school. You know, we used to, you know, we were there until we were 15, and you know, we used to smuggle in drink into the dormitories, and it just progressed from there. I think I was almost destined to have that route. There wasn't anything tragic that happened to me. I mean, boarding school wasn't great, I must admit, but you know, there's no life event. I come from a good family. You know, there was nothing significant. It was just my need to avoid life. You know, it felt like an easier option to me, but obviously it wasn't in the long run.
So how many years were you an addict for?
So I would say it really kicked off when I was about 17, 18, and I came into recovery when I was 33. So we're talking 15 years.
So it's quite some time, isn't it? Yeah. And so your children, you had the children whilst you're an addict?
Absolutely, yes.
You did.
Something that I'm not proud of, but I love my children to bits, and they are amazing. They are absolutely amazing. But
I believe things happen for a reason, like the lesson, because you felt you was always kind of destined for that, and always like the prayer before the accident. It's almost like something that's predestined, and it is, you know, to bring you where you are today.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it was a difficult time for them. It was a difficult time for all of us. And you know, there's been a journey since I've come into recovery. The three children, because they were 8, 9, and 11 when I came into recovery. So suddenly they had this mum who was very different, and I was trying to be a better person and be there for them and have boundaries at home, because there weren't many boundaries at all, really, for the kids. And so when that all started, it was difficult, and we all had to learn through that. So I'm not only proud of myself, but I'm also proud of my kids, because they've come from a really difficult background, living with two addicts, being brought up in that situation. And, they've come out of it, and they've been successful, and, they've done what they've needed to do. And they have had their problems, understandably. But, we as a family, we're very close now. Unfortunately, their father passed away 3 years ago. He didn't get clean.
Never.
No. And eventually, the addiction just took him at the age of 52. He passed away.
Wow.
Which is sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, it's a strange, because you grieve, don't you? And you probably have those like what ifs and things like that.
Yeah.
Because I suppose they only saw their dad as an addict, whereas they've seen you sort of transform, haven't they? But with their dad, he was just always that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was just it just didn't happen for him. And I feel very lucky and blessed that I got out, because it could have been a very different story. And I know how gripping addiction can be. And I suppose that's, Shelley, why I do the work that I do today, because I feel it's so important for people to understand what they need to get out of addictions, or to get well with your mental health, to deal with trauma. There's certain things that we need, and the 3 key things that I particularly work with, and it's self-compassion, self-acceptance, and loving connection. So it's having that compassion for yourself, having acceptance of yourself, and learning how to do that, but also having connection with other people who understand you, and people who you can be vulnerable with, because we tend to hide so much about ourselves, which often isn't helpful for us, because everything that we hide and keep inside ourselves just manifests and builds. And I talk about the committees sometimes that we have in our own heads, and it's so important to have people and support. Like a lot of people will have a good friend that they can talk to.
Yeah.
If it's that's great, but if not, it's finding people who understand you and understand where you're coming from, and can give you the support that you need.
Yeah, I think friends are important, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes we need people who don't know us as a starting block, because I think that helps us with our self-acceptance.
Yeah.
So friends, absolutely, but I think if you get the chance to work with others outside, it's really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your positive change was, obviously you came out of addiction following the car accident. It wasn't a sudden positive change, it was like a work in progress. But now you help people with their positive changes.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's the cognitive behaviour therapy was your degree. Is that purely what you do? Because I know you do retreats and everything, don't you? So
no, it's very much built from that. I started with that training in 2005, and on the end of that training, I secured myself some work in a prison, and I worked with groups in prisons on a treatment program for addiction. So I learned lots of different models when I was there, specifically around working with groups, but also around working with addictions, and lots of different techniques. And, I went on to train as a supervisor, so I learned about different therapy techniques as well. So I've built my own model, really, which is based in cognitive behaviour therapy. I mean, that's what I really am. I'm a brain person. I talk about talking to our brains all the time, and how important it is to have that self-talk and all that. But underneath that, I also have quite a spiritual aspect. And I think it roots back to my first degree, which was in anthropology. And I studied all spiritual side of things during that first degree. And it's resurfaced over the last few years. So I integrate that into my retreats. So we do the cognitive work, we do the self-compassion work, we do the self-acceptance work. Then there's a connection with the group, which is so important. And then we do the spiritual side and the mind-body connection. So using yoga and meditation to bring you mindfully into your body, so you become aware of your present state. And you know, that's so important, especially for a lot of trauma, to be connected to the body and to understand how the body stores trauma, but also to be able to bring ourselves into the moment. Because some people find meditation quite difficult, you know, just sitting there and just listening to something, or trying to focus on your breath. So doing the movement, we've done movement therapy as well on the retreats. You know, we've done some body work, we do a lot of creative stuff. We build vision boards. You know, it's just amazing. And you know, I've had so many clients come through these retreats now, and most of them are still in contact with me and still come and attend some of the online workshops that I run, because I've been doing quite a lot of those recently with lockdown. Because we're in that period at the moment. So yeah, you know, a lot of people still engage with me. They kind of let me know how they're doing. And you know, I see the transformation. I mean, literally, I've had, you know, clients come through the door of that retreat just shaking with anxiety and fear, and just in that place of complete darkness in their lives. And okay, they've done the retreat, they felt good after the retreat, but it's the work that we've done afterwards that's really helped to really cement that work that they've done on themselves, on the intensive, on the retreat. So I like to work with people after the retreats as well, if they need it. Because some people don't need that. Some people just need to come away for a few days and have a rest and de-stress and learn some things about themselves. And I have a few clients who come and do that as well.
So I'm intrigued. So I know you had your car accident and that was your positive change. And I totally understand like the anxiety when people are stepping in. I see that when people come to my death cafe, they're quite sort of like, don't know what to expect. I'm going to myself up. So how do you find that people find you? That makes sense. So you had an accident, you had that sort of that niggle that you was going to move forward in your life. How do they physically get to you? Do you know what I mean? I mean, what makes them get through the door? Is there something starting to internalize about moving forward, or are they referred to you?
Yes, I mean, people find me all through all different routes, referrals, online, you know, through other retreat organizations that I advertise with. Some people are looking for cognitive behavior therapy. So the route that I get a lot of people searching for is anxiety and depression retreats, because I think, you know, the idea of a retreat is very attractive because it's going away, having that space, it's away from your home, makes maybe a stressful environment. So yeah, a lot of people kind of come to me through that, so that they're at that point in their lives where they're saying, I need to do something, but they don't quite know what. And so my job is to support them to get through that door, because that's such a scary step. But then coming away to a beautiful venue can be a good way to do that. Or, you know, just setting up a couple of calls with me and, you know, doing some work with me and starting to understand and bringing down those stress levels. It's so important to bring down those stress levels to start off with, which is what I got. I'm so grateful for the lady, she was called Vanessa actually as well, who gave me that acupuncture, and we just used to talk through stuff, and I just needed my stress levels to come down so that I was out of that panic, so I could actually see a way forward. And then it was like, then my recovery journey could start. Because when you're in that crisis place, it's very difficult to hear anything, any suggestions, or, you know, or be responsive to any support. But sometimes it is just about getting yourself through that door, and you know, actually then just going, okay, I surrender in a way, or I'm going to allow somebody to help me. And you know, one thing I love is I was thinking about the name of your book, and the policy, it's the self, is it the self-change,
self-kick book, positive changes, a self-kick book.
So you cross and you put the self-kick, because I needed that kick, and actually my car accident was that kick that I got. And for lots of people, there's something breaks, whether it's, you know, I don't know, a family member turns around and says something, or, you know, something goes terribly wrong, or they miss an appointment or a family event, or they find themselves leaving work because they can't cope. There's always something that kind of breaks that, and gives you that kick of, and I believe that comes, you know, externally, you know, that point where you need to listen to that and actually say, okay, I need to get some help now, or do something.
Yeah, I think people do, even without trauma or addiction. I think many of us get to a certain stage in our life where we just think the questioning starts, like, there's got to be more than this. Why am I here? Where am I going? You know, and I experienced it with motherhood. Like, we have 4 children. Then you get to that point thinking, who am I? Who was I before the children? I think we all start a search at some point.
Yeah.
So those people who are listening today, whether they're just stuck in life or they're addicted or got that niggle that's coming up, what tools could you recommend that they try at home?
So the first thing that I would say to anybody is just try and ground yourself. And by that, I mean, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, feeling life is not going well at the moment, just find some ways to just settle yourself. So even if it's just going for a walk, or, you know, just, there is a technique you can use where you just look around the room at objects, because you always need to bring down those stress levels. And then maybe look into, search for online. There's plenty of free workshops, there's information out there. Get some information about what you're struggling with. And, you know, see if there's other people out there. Maybe join some Facebook groups.
Yeah.
And because I think it has to be a gentle introduction, you know, because it's a big step to take. But if you just start the ball rolling, maybe pick up a self-help book somewhere, but just get curious about what's happening to you, and also believe that things can change, things can get better, but you have to put a little bit of action in. You can't just sit there and wait for things to change. You have to take those steps, and even if it's just one little step a day that you take, so you go and search something online, or you go and join a group, an anxiety group on Facebook, or maybe you actually pick up the phone and, you know, speak to the Samaritans, or, you know, reach out to another organization. Or if a friend offers to speak to you, you know, if a friend offers and says, if you're struggling, give me a call, do it. You know, don't feel ashamed to reach out, because it's a big step to take, but I absolutely recommend it. And I say it's essential. You have to start reaching out and getting the help that you need. And
I think we all need to listen to that, because it's something not very good at, really, is it? That we, even if we find the power, the courage to ask for help, we then don't always accept it.
Yeah.
And no, and sometimes we just need a little bit of help. We need that little self kick, don't we?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I love what you're saying. You're saying, like, because obviously I'm slightly biased, it's how I wrote my book, but it is just changing one small thing. Like, if you hate your job, you know, start looking at an online course or finding information. You know, if you've got an addiction, is there someone that can help you in your local community? Could you get in contact with someone that is, you know, from your past? Can you phone the doctor? And it is just one small act. And it's, you know, yours obviously wasn't a small act, you had a car crash, but you know, one change of event can change your life. Isn't it? You don't have to do the whole big thing. Just start small, like make the call, research your local area, Google Vanessa, find her.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was only talking to a client a couple of days ago, and they said, you know, they were amazed because asking for help hasn't been easy for them, and they were amazed once they did ask for help, how many people appeared with different types of help for them.
Yeah, you do. It's so true. Which I think we, as humans, we'd far rather help someone else than ourselves. Sometimes we like to have a purpose. If we're struggling to find our own life purpose, we'll quite willingly help someone else, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've made so many positive changes, and you're helping people make positive changes. But for those that are listening, can you say in your own words, why is it important to create positive changes?
Personally, it's important because you are worth so much more, and we're all worth the best possible life we can have. And you know, we can fall short. We can call ourselves, I don't know how to explain it, but we can sell ourselves short. That's the words I was looking for. We really can. And you know what I want to say is, I want the probably reasons that you're selling yourself short. And you know, I just want to encourage people to take that step, because also the other side of it, which is what I've discovered, is that if you are better mentally and feeling better mentally and able to manage yourself and your emotions and your life, you can also help other people. And so then we can start a movement of people helping other people, and generally the world just becomes a kinder, nicer place. Whereas if everybody's stuck in their problems, which, you know, obviously understandably we get stuck, there's nothing wrong in being stuck, but also I believe that, you know, by getting the help you need, you can be part of that movement towards really changing the world, changing how people are, you know, changing support for other, maybe changing somebody else's life. You could do that.
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
is what I've done. You know, I've been able to change and transform other people's lives. If I'd stayed where I was as a heroin addict, you know, just living in my cottage in Wales, not really able to do anything, there'd be so many people who would have missed out on my help. But you know that, and I had to be dragged out of that life. So
That's really honest though, because I think people might think, oh, it's okay for her, she's at the other side, but it's not easy. And that's when I get the guests on, you know, it wasn't like he's going, no, I'm just going to potter down to London for a year. You know, it was, as you said, I was dragged. My ex-husband has died because he didn't make the positive change. You know, it is a real powerful story, isn't it? And it's not always easy.
No, it's definitely not easy. And that's why I believe so much that we need support with that. And it's finding the people who understand, who are compassionate with you, who get you, and you know, who give you that support that you need. And don't be disheartened if you go for some support and then it falls apart. Maybe funding gets pulled, or you know, somebody kind of turns around and says they can't really help you anymore. Don't get disheartened by that, because that happens quite a lot, and it kind of just can just reinforce that belief that nobody can help me. But you know, try again, because there will be somebody out there. And just by trying, you're moving forward. You know, if you're not trying, you're not moving forward. But just by trying, and I know that can be tiring as well, but I would encourage people to keep going. You know, don't give up.
That's really valid, because you know, we all have bad days. Even author here of Positive Changes, we all have bad days, and maybe someone is just busy, or they've got their own little war going on inside. So do keep asking, do keep looking for phone numbers that can help you, local support groups, another friend, another day, but just keep going, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's really beautiful advice, right from the acupuncturist right up to, you know, calling for help and being dragged out your cottage. You know, it's not easy, but you've made it. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
The best piece of advice I've been given was to walk away. So I was in a difficult situation in a relationship, actually, and in fact, it was, you know, it's difficult to talk about really, but you know, it was my children's father, and because we were so enmeshed in our addiction together, you know, we were quite codependent. I don't know if people know what that means, but we were kind of really locked together in quite an unhealthy relationship. And he became quite poorly. At one point he had pneumonia, and it was at the end of our relationship, and I knew that I needed to change, but it was very difficult for me to get out of the cycle with still having some connection with him. And I was at the hospital, and I called a very close family member, and I said they're wanting me to take him home. I felt so guilty, so bad, because he was quite poorly. And my family member said to me, just walk away, just walk out of there. And it really was the best advice that I've ever been given, because I walked away from dysfunction, from addiction, from, you know, a life that wasn't serving me. And, you know, I walked into, obviously it took a bit of time, but taking that massive step at that point, which was really, really difficult, but, you know, I followed that advice. And so you know, that is the best advice that's been given to me, is to just walk away. You know, if it's not working for you, walk away and go and find something new.
Wow. That's really powerful. It's like 31 degrees today, Vanessa, and I've just got goosebumps. So you've done well there. But just wow. I mean, totally in love with the person that told you to walk away. It could not be easy. As you say, it's like the father of your children. It's the life you knew. And you do get enmeshed because you're in this cycle that, you know, you're both having the same existence. So you don't feel quite so bad being an addict if there's another one doing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it kind of goes back to what we're saying, that if you want to start making a change today and you phone someone, I guess you've got to watch who you phone, because if you phone in a fellow addict or someone else who's, I don't know, whatever they're tolerating, a broken relationship, a job they hate, they're not going to be your tribe cheering you on to get a better life. So sometimes when you start reaching out, as you've just said, sometimes you have to go beyond your normal circle, don't you?
Yeah.
To be heard.
Yeah.
Bless you. That is powerful stuff. Really powerful stuff. So I'm sure people are going to love your work. I mean, there's amazing coaches out there, but I'm slightly biased that I think when you've been through what you're treating people for, it's a whole new level. That's my personal opinion. It's my podcast, so I can say what I like. But but I think, yeah, like nursing, like I've did a nursing degree, textbook, stuff like that. But when I've nursed my own family, there's another level that comes in. So I'm sure people out here are going to want to reach out to you because you've been there, you've done that. And I think you must be amazing to work with. So people can reach you. You're the crystalclearcoaching.org, the website, but you're also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Yes. My Facebook is Crystal Clear Retreats, and my Instagram is Crystal Clear Coach. And I'm under YouTube as my own name, Vanessa Wallace. But if you go onto my website, crystalclearcoaching.org, there's all the links in there as well to access anything else that I'm available on.
Absolutely fabulous. Bless you. You've been absolutely raw and authentic. I can't thank you enough. I think you're going to help so many people. So thank you for being
Shelley.
you.
Thank you so much.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please ensure you subscribe and do leave a positive review. If you would like to create your own positive changes, head on over to shelleyfknight.com and you can buy yourself a copy of Positive Changes, a self-kick book. If you want some positivity until the next show, come join us over on Facebook. That's Shelley F. Knight, Life Goes On. So I've been Shelley F. Knight, and as always, you've been amazing.